We all know how NIL changed college football, but someone, aka Coach Prime, may not be a fan of the direction that college football is headed. I'll talk about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Buffs.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? This is Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode, we're talking about Coach Prime's issues with NIL. He clearly isn't a fan of the direction that it's heading. NIL Collectives, to be specific, just didn't have enough room over there. Coach Prime talking about culture issues that he inherited at Colorado, which may be kind of shocking to some. And then previewing the 2023 squad. He was kind enough to discuss the roster with Joel Klatt, so we are going to discuss that as well. But before we do, I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Buffs your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever it may be. That's where you'll find me. Okay, let's dive right in. Coach Prime discussed many things in an interview with Joel Klatt. Very good interview. If you guys want to go watch it over on Joel Klatt's page. But one of the things they talked about was NIL, how it's changing college football, and whether or not Coach Prime likes it. And so, a dang mic unplugging again. Okay, if you don't know what NIL is, in 2021, in July, the NCAA allowed for players to finally profit off their name, image, and likeness, so they could basically, it's like being sponsored, if you will. Because the whole reason that there's the NCAA video game that stopped was players wanted to be paid for it and they were not allowed to profit. But obviously, after they allowed it to happen, the NCAA, college football went absolutely bananas, berserk, psychotic, if you will. There's players like Jaden Rashada, who ended up at Arizona State, was supposed to go to Florida for an absurd amount of money. And then all of a sudden the money fell through. So he didn't go there anymore, ended up at Arizona State. There's classes like Texas A&M where they have huge NIL just thrown it at people to sign the number one recruiting class in history. And then there's just guys that will enter the portal because they think they could make more NIL money somewhere else. So that's what Coach Prime talked about. And he said, and this is direct quote from him, NIL is not a problem with me, collectives are. And so then he touched on the fact that collectives basically allow people at these programs who aren't involved with the programs really, like boosters and stuff, to just throw sums of money at these guys before they even set foot on the field. So all these players are interested, and this was the other thing, which is kind of, I think it touches on this generation and like this NIL era, because I think on one aspect, I get wanting to maximize how much money you can make, but this next part was pretty jarring when Coach Prime said that kids will literally ask how much money they're going to get or whatever, like what their NIL deals will be, before they ask where they would play on offense or defense or what their role would be in the system. And I think that's crazy. Like these guys are basing their whole college journey off of who makes them the most money. And obviously I understand getting that bag. I totally understand why guys want to get paid after years of college athletes not being paid and compensated for generating hundreds of millions, billions of dollars worth of revenue. But to ask a coach or whoever they're asking, I don't know who they're asking, so don't quote me on that, but to ask someone affiliated with the program, how much money can you give me, before you actually ask about the program, that kind of shows the mindset of this NIL generation. He said that he was talking about how it kind of takes the drive out of people. Once they get their big payday, are they going to want to prove themselves anymore? Because they already got their money from the collective. They already got their big bag. So what do they need to show themselves? It seems like he says that he wants them to be able to be paid based on how good they are. Which obviously you don't know when they come from high school to college. You don't know how good they're going to be. There's been 5 stars that have failed, and then there's been 2 or 3 stars that have emerged as stars. And so he constantly reiterated that he's not anti-NIL, but he doesn't like the fact that just anyone could pay athletes to go to certain schools. And he's not the first coach to speak out about this, and he won't be the last. I just thought it was interesting that we've gotten to a point where recruits would rather know how much money they're getting rather than what the school has to offer academically, football wise. Who's my position coach going to be? What scheme are we running? What position do you see me playing? I think that's absurd, really. I think there's going to be a lot of NIL netting coming out in the next few years. I feel like we've already seen that has already said that these NIL deals are not they're going to be taxed. They're not because they're donations or something. There doesn't exempt them from being taxed. So NIL is about to get real tricky. I think there needs to be some sort of monitoring or containment to it, and it's interesting that this is how the route we've gone down. But for Coach Prime, someone who, if he was when he was in college, if NIL was a thing, he probably would have made millions of dollars even during the 80s. He was that famous. For someone to be like someone like him who wants people to give money, who wants people to earn that NFL check, who wants people to maximize their value. For someone like him to be like, you know what, it's a problem. I think that shows us this is a problem, not because he was ever going to not say it was a problem or anything, but kids are getting ridiculous these days. He said some guys, if a person asks him how much money they're going to make before they ask him, that's the first question they ask, he'll tell them bye, because he doesn't want him. That's what he said. That's not the type of guy he's looking for. And I can't blame him. So really weird world we live in. I think we're going to see a big switch in NIL energy coming up here in the next coming years. So just stay tuned for that. Speaking of money, make your way to FanDuel right now, because right now new customers can get a no sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. They have great promotions every single day, safe, secure, really easy to use. You get paid instantly. Don't have to worry about your money coming through. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Here they have a great deal. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Get a no sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Go place your bets. Okay, let's dive right into our next topic. This is kind of one that you guys have all. It's very controversial. Coach Prime was reportedly cutting people, telling them to get out of Dodge, and everybody's upset, and everybody's like, "How could he do that?" Pat Narduzzi's like, "It's bad for college football. The kids." Well, first of all, none of these athletes are kids anymore. I mean, if they're going to get compensated and this is like a job and other people's jobs are on the line, I don't think you get that kid treatment anymore. I just don't. College sports has always been essentially like semi-pro, or I don't know, like highly compensated for being in college, but they don't get the, "Oh, they're just kids" excuse, because one, they're not. They're like young adults. But Coach Prime, again, with Joel Klatt, was talking about how he asked him about the infamous 1-in-11. I'm bringing my baggage and it's bringing my luggage and it's Louis. And Coach Prime talked about how he doesn't rehearse it, so he's just coming up with these one-liners off the dome, which I totally respect, because I mean, love a good one-liner. Comes up with it, but then if you guys don't remember, I'll kind of like go over what he talked about. He talked about the kind of culture that they were going to bring in, the kind of player he wanted, the energy he wanted, the effort he wanted, and what the goal was. And so you would think that these young players who just finished last season as one of the worst teams in college football, maybe college football history, they just finished as one of the worst teams ever, or at least a recent memory, have a new coach who is one of the best football players ever, who brings so much attention to your program. And what these kids did after this was absolutely mind-boggling to me. Okay, so Coach Prime gives this whole spiel about how he wants the program to be better. He thinks the program, the students, the fan base all deserve better than what they got last year, even the athletes. And then he says, so after that meeting concludes, he goes into each position group. I think it was to like introduce himself or kind of get a feel for whoever was there or whatever. walks into one specific. He didn't say which one it was. I don't know if he did remember, if he did on blast, but walks into a position room, and they're playing music on a what do you call it, like a boombox. Oh my gosh, I forgot the word. I'm not that young, but I'm also not that old. I'm like mid boombox to like I've seen boomboxes, but I was more of like the iPod Touch came out when I was little, so I'm like somewhere in between. The MP3 player. Anyway, he walks in and they're bumping music on the boombox. They're all on their phones, just chilling, no respect. After like seconds after, he just went into that room, talked about how doesn't want to see like certain types of clothing, like you be wearing backwards hats or whatever it was. Like he had his whole little thing. He had his whole thing mapped out from what he wanted from them, and these guys were on their phones bumping music on the boombox. And I guess Coach Prime goes, "Excuse me, what is going on here? Like why on earth do you think this right here, what you're doing, is okay?" And I guess they said, "Oh, coach, we always play music in the position room." I would have literally, I don't know who said it because obviously we'll never know unless he for some reason reveals. How stupid could you be? Like legit, how dumb could you be? Like one, think of it as like a job interview. I know most of these probably if any of them have never been through a job interview, but you never be like in a job interview, you would never just like casually refer to the job interviewer and be like, "Oh, I do this because that's how we always do it," or "That's just the way I do things." You're basically fighting for a spot, which I don't think these kids on the 1 and 11 roster really understood the magnitude of what Coach Prime was doing. Like, I don't think when he said that he was bringing his own luggage, I don't think they understood that because honestly, we didn't understand that. Like, we didn't know that he was going to bring in nearly 50 transfers, number one transfer portal class in the country. We knew he was going to use the portal, but not to that extent. By the way, I want to thank my everyday listeners and all of you guys for tuning in every day. My everydayers, I appreciate you guys. Comment below. Make sure to leave some mailbag questions for Friday. Got some good episodes coming up, so you won't want to miss them. But back to what I was saying, I don't think these guys really understood that he was legit serious, not going to keep all of them. I don't know if they were unfamiliar with his work at Jackson State, where he did not keep everybody, but the literal shock I had when he said that this guy looked him in the eyes and said, "Oh, we always do this." Are you dumb? Like, what are you doing? Like, oh baby, no. Like, why would you say that? That at one, that's disrespectful. Two, it's dumb because he literally just told you, like, even if he didn't say specifically, which I mean, I don't feel like these are again young adults. Even if he didn't say, you know what, guys, I saw boom boxes, no boom boxes. Even if he didn't say that word for word, I think you could kind of imply based off of the tone of the meeting, how it went, and how serious he seemed, and how he was literally telling you guys to get in the portal that this wouldn't be a joking matter. And so these guys are just out here listening to Lil Baby or whoever it may be. I don't know, Carrie Underwood. I don't care, whoever they're listening to, and that's what the move you pull. No, no, that's so bad. And so obviously that just shows the kind of culture he inherited, which honestly, I saw the culture problem from afar. I didn't cover Colorado at the time, but when Coach Prime took the Colorado job, um, I was in the works of becoming the person to cover Colorado, and I would go on TikTok, as one does, because I love TikTok, and I'd be scrolling, and there would be Colorado guys from last year's roster making like videos mocking like Coach Prime, telling them to get out. Like these guys were taking it as a joke. They were laughing. I saw Colorado videos laughing during the season when they lost after games. Like they make TikToks after it and be like, "Oh, haha, we lost again." Like, what is that? Like, no wonder Coach Prime kicked all these kids out and like told them all to leave. Like they were the most unserious group I'd ever seen. Um, it really seems like they were just fine with being Division One athletes. Like, which I mean, congrats, that's an accomplishment. There's only so many Division One athletes out here in the world. But I think we all would want to achieve more in representing a school, maybe ourselves, making a career out of it. I don't know. But yeah, that was just probably the most absurd thing I'd ever seen. Don't really understand how that, like, I don't know what was going through their heads during that time. I'm sure there's a lot of overwhelming stuff because obviously when Deion Sanders gets hired as your head coach, it's like, oh, that's so cool. But then he comes and he's like, I don't want any of you guys. I'm sure that's overwhelming, but I don't understand the disconnect there. I don't know why they would try some of the stuff that they did or tried. Either way, there's a new roster in town. Coach Prime talked about it with Joel Klatt and how good they are and what they bring to the table. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. Welcome back. We're talking about Coach Prime's thoughts on the roster. So obviously he talked about the NIL collectives, talked about the roster that he kind of got rid of. Now he's talking about the roster that's here. And so Joe Klatt asked him about how well they could be in year one. Joe Klatt was like, "You're not going to win a championship." And Coach Prime was like, "Why not? Why not us?" And love the energy. I really do. So Joe Klatt asked what they're getting in Coach Prime's new squad, and he said, "Smart, tough, fast, disciplined with character. We're going to get the ball. Man, people made a big stink of who we let go, but not a big stink about who we brought in. You got to really start eyeballing who we brought in and what they bring to the table. Now, there's competition in practice. Forget offense, defense. I'm talking about versus the Russians, the inside guys, the linebackers. You gotta compete to even get on the darn field, which I love because there's so many guys transferring in that expect to have major roles, and you know what? You got to earn it. It's not going to be given, as you could expect. And then obviously they added some very notable guys. He himself, which I don't know if it's because he's a corner or maybe he just loves the corner group. I don't know, but he raved about the corner. He said the secondary, everybody's 6 foot and above at the corner position, long arms, can jump out of the gym, very athletic, can house that thing if they get it. Safety's very physical, can cover the slot, but they're bangers. Not only that, they can cover the ball. They're getters. They're gonna get the ball, which you love to see because I feel like last year everybody had an issue getting the ball, making tackles. So that obviously Shadur Sanders and Shiloh Sanders are on the roster, and so he talked about that too. He says it's only 2 guys in this whole organization that gets the record, and their last name is Sanders. So we've got to make sure we take care of them and get them the ball. When we do that, we're gonna make the necessary read, and proper throws because he's very accurate. He's always been his whole darn life. We're gonna get some things done because we have little intangibles that's gonna make it work. And then he continues saying, "It's very rare that you have really good talent, and I have a really good coaching staff, and you don't win. I don't see no one disagree about the level of the coaching staff. So why would you find fault in the way we're going about the thing and the kids? But you said nothing about me assembling the coaching staff. So I'm good at that, but not good at that. Assembling the coaching staff is harder than the kids. There's no way we're going to have that and not this." Obviously, Colorado opens up against the national runner-up TCU in September, I think 2nd in Dallas. Yeah. So I love how he's approaching this team. He's building a physical, fast team. Like obviously that's their saying is strong, or what is their saying? Smart, tough, fast. He's building a team that's physical. They know how to play at the Power 5 level. A lot of these guys play Power 5 football. There's a lot of guys that are inexperienced, but he also it's a good mixture, I think. It's an interesting mixture, but we'll find out how it works. And then obviously I love his confidence in the team. Joel Klatt from like a foot away looked at him and goes, "You're not winning at all the year one." And Coach Prime goes, "Why?" Like he was like dead serious too. And I love that confidence about him. Yesterday, my bold predictions was that he's going to lead Colorado to a bowl game victory. I don't know if that's a bold prediction anymore. I just feel like he has so much confidence in this roster, so much confidence in this team. It's hard to bet against him. He just has that confidence. He has that belief. He has that willpower. And I think realistically, Colorado is going to shock some people in year one. And it's only going to get better because they're hitting the recruiting trail really hard. They're improving pretty much everywhere. And so Colorado, I think, has a lot of potential to be really good. It just depends on one. I think it depends on Shadur. If he could adjust as quickly as possible, this offense will be clicking. And then it depends on the offense line and defense line. I think those are my 3 biggest concerns. I'd put Shadur as concern number 3. The other 2, or I guess they could be 1 and 2. But I'm more concerned about the trenches than Shadur. I just think when your quarterback is as important as he is, it obviously helps that he's just clicking. But what are you gonna do? You gotta wait and see. But I'm excited to see this Colorado team. They got a lot of weapons for him to throw to. You got Jimmy Horn, Xavier Weaver, Travis Hunter, Javon Antonio, all these guys. Running back room is stacked, and so this defense is going to be very interesting. They have really good coaches, like he said. It goes overlooked often too much, because I think everybody's like, oh, the transfers, oh, Coach Prime. It's like Sean Lewis was a head coach literally last year. He quit his head coaching job to take this offensive coordinator job. Obviously, he wants to parlay it into another head coaching job at a better school than Kent State, but he literally quit a head coaching job. He was already a head coach and he wants to be an assistant. Charles Kelly, he left Nick Saban's staff at Alabama. He wanted to be a defensive coordinator. He wanted that bigger role. Sal Sunseri wanted to get back on the field. They have so many experienced coaches. Really, I could name them all, but I'm not gonna. You could literally just go down the list and be like, oh, this coach has what they had. I think 4 or 5 head coaches on the staff right now. So a lot of experience down there, and I think that people are down the Buffs, and I think that's the position they want to be in, because it's like, please doubt us so we can prove you wrong. And that's not a bad position to be in. No expectations means anything you do that's good just exceeds expectations. So Coach Prime had a great interview with Joel Klatt, and honestly, go check it out. You won't want to miss it. You won't want to miss tomorrow's episode of Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, supporting the pod. Let's get those subscribers numbers up. Let's like, subscribe, follow, all that. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys on Wednesday.